The success of the charitable model. When you interact with people, you're incredibly charitable. This has been a valuable growth strategy for you, as it allows new people to interact with you in interesting ways, despite the real possibility that they're awful people. It sustains the model you laid out a few streams ago. Cast of interesting and disagreeable orbiters leads into a controversial event, /take comes out, leads into research, leads into debate, leads into drama over Fallout, leads into repeat. Without your charitability and your willingness to defend the people who come on your stream, the retention rate for orbiters would be very low, and that they would be more easily discouraged by your community's negative feedback. You make excuses for people who wrong you, and you seem willing to take back. This email was from, like, I think a week ago, so this isn't related to the Britney stuff, actually, but you make excuses for people who wrong you, and you seem willing to take back people pretty quickly, even if they wrong you in serious ways, such as Zerka, for the Zerka and Anna drama. The current fire situation is a perfect illustration of where this can spiral out of control. I argue that this charitability willingness to forgive works so effectively because you have huge overlaps with the people you interact with. Even when a Mr. Girl or a Zerka snakes you, you can preserve your reputation because such a huge portion of their audience is already familiar with you. Even the forgiveness/uncertainty of contentious orbiters stimulates debates within the community, which further boosts growth. This is in regards to the Farah person. The failures of the charitability model. With Farah, these conditions don't apply. She's not another orbiter, she's another planet. This means that when she snakes you or shows the proclivity to snake you, your charitable approach fails. Her giant audience is not familiar with you in the same way that prior snakes' audiences were, so false or misleading narratives spread very quickly and you lack effective right of reply. This is part and parcel of creating new relationships and growing on new platforms. So I know it is kind of impossible to avoid this situation. However, I think there are a few things you should be doing that could help. Partial solutions. I know you view a lot of discussions through a probabilistic model, but you need to apply this more stringently. When you interact with new people, you should be assigning some probability to their snakiness and act accordingly. Let's say that after the first hour conversation, we give her a 20% chance of snaking you. When you make decisions about future conversations, you should ask yourself, what can I do to minimize snakiness? What can I do to mitigate the negative impacts of a snake? I think with this model, you should demand more of the people you interact with. With Farah, given her newness, you should always be insisting that you get your own recording of any conversation. You can leverage your massive channel to get this with a lot of people, I would imagine. This especially applies to someone like Farah because if she snakes you, this could cause huge reputational damage. If you demanded this of her, she might never clip you up so snakely. This should be a huge concern when dealing with highly controversial topics like rape. And then punishment of large snakes. Even when you do find someone to be a snake, you are so charitable that they feel almost no repercussion for snaking you. Again, this is not awful when the snake is highly incentivized to come back to you and move on, like Zerka, but the incentives for Farah are weaker. I think you should be making TikToks yourself on camera, giving your side of the story. You should be telling people to email her, asking her to take her video down /clarify, and you should be telling DJGers to counteract the pro-rape clips with clips of all your anti-rape takes over the years. If you don't care enough to enforce your boundaries in the moment, you'll regret it later when they destroy your reputation with tens of thousands of people with their dishonesty. It's kind of doom repelling, but you can't always blah, blah, blah. I don't think that, for whatever, I know, people disagree, I don't care. I don't think Farah was like trying to snake me or anything. But I think there's like something that I take from this that I'm trying to think about yesterday, because I'm trying to figure out what is happening in terms of, hold on. Obviously, I have to try to figure out what's happening in terms of people doing their thing. So, I wrote notes to my phone when I was walking. I like being very charitable to people because obviously it carries with it a couple of huge pros. One is that I get to talk to more people, I get to talk to more different types of people than any other streamer does, I think. Because I think I'm the only streamer my size who's willing to talk to so many different people. I think that generally, once you hit my size, you basically only hang out with people of a similar size. You never talk to smaller content creators ever because there's no clout, there's too much risk, there's just too much potential downside. So I like that aspect of being ultra charitable and of being really open because then you get new, interesting people. However, I think what I need to do more stringently is I need to be way more careful in terms of how I evaluate the character of a person, and being personally charitable. There has to be a difference between my personal level of like friendly charitability that I extend to somebody versus like my public facing attitudes towards somebody. So I think that I'm just going to try to, I'm going to mentally keep this in mind, that I will publicly update my audience on where I think I stand with certain people that more accurately reflects the probability of what's happening rather than like the ultra charitable personal model I tend to extend to people, if that makes sense. So like in my mind right now, like Sneako's at like a 60% like snake fuck level because the comment's gonna be publicly, right? So I think that if I keep people's opinions like relatively guided in that trajectory or that direction, then like if something happens in the future where like he massively shits on me or does something, then I'm like, yeah, okay, of course, because we saw that kind of happening. If I apply this retrospectively with Brittany, that I shouldn't call it snake level, but like the flip level, I don't know how to call it, but the volatility level I think would have increased dramatically from almost nothing to like 60, 70, 80% after the rape conversation. And then also when the public is on notice like that, when things like this do happen, it's like more understandable. Yeah, that's what that's that. So I think I'm gonna try to do that type of thing, like more and more often. I'll try to update based on events that are happening, and then have like a public, kind of like a rolling public perception of where I stand with people, so that it's not like such a huge, like what the fuck just happened thing. Do you think the rape conversation can't be resolved? I think I'm doing a lot of mind reading here. The problem is I don't trust Brittany to understand her own feelings, and I don't know if she would be honest with herself or with me if I asked her. So I know Arid that will get triggered if she is, but I don't. There's no personal. I don't think there's any value in talking to Brittany about it. But if I had to guess, I think there's two big things that happen. I think there were two huge things that were happening with Brittany. This is my guess. Oh my God, did this really unsign me in? Two big things that were happening with Brittany is one is I think that Brittany is somebody who thinks that like when they have an opinion, if their friends don't agree with them, then that friend is being like disrespectful. She really values when people listen to her advice and take it. It's very, very, very important to her that she has that dynamic, I think, with people she talks to. When I went back and I listened to like her like sucking off Sneako and, oh, he's so open-minded, blah, 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 I actually think that the only reason she thinks that is because Sneako is more likely to listen to her personal advice than I am. And by the way, I don't even think Sneako is listening to her personal advice. He probably just like agrees with her when she talks. But I think that's one big part of it. For me, and I have this problem with other people. Now with Brittany, it got a little bit more exacerbated. But if I have an opinion about something, especially a strong opinion, usually it's that way for a reason. It is incredibly rare that your one personal experience is going to move the needle for that on me, unless you've got an astounding personal experience that I've never considered before. So for instance, when I talked about like, I think generally when you go back home with people, you usually want to have sex. When Anna, the Ukrainian girl, came up and she was like, oh, like sometimes we go home to like hang out and watch movies and stuff because like going out to theaters is really expensive. I never actually considered that from like an Eastern European, like even in America, like even if you're like working class, like you can usually afford to like go out to the movies. You might sneak in some like M&Ms or something. You don't buy that, but you can afford that. But I never thought like, oh yeah, maybe the affordability of things in other countries dramatically changes that dynamic. I never considered that. And that's something that would like radically reshape, that would be like an example of somebody told me some new piece of information. I'm like, oh, I never considered this as right. Information. I'm like, oh, I never considered this as right. So I think that's one really big thing is that she, and this isn't just her, but a lot of people really want you to take their personal experience as like gospel, and when you don't take that, it's very, very hurtful. I re-listened to that entire stream that Brittany did. It was like 3 or 4 hours, and that was a reoccurring theme a lot. And I think she brought that up against me several times. Like, oh, Destiny's not open to new experiences. When she says Destiny's not open-minded or open to new experiences, what she's really saying is Destiny's not listening to me. Destiny's not taking what I'm saying as true. Destiny's closed off to my experience. I want him to, And then there's a whole other psychology that goes into that of like, well, if I don't agree with you and you think I'm reasonably smart, then there's a cognitive dissonance because whatever idea you're selling me probably validates a lot of her own trauma or problems too. So when I am not taking her personal experience as gospel, I'm also invalidating a lot of like emotions that she has. So there's like a whole thing for that. So that's one thing, number one. That's one thing, number one. And then the second part is I run into this a few times, this is just going to sound really arrogant, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I will sound arrogant because fuck it, I don't give a fuck, and I don't care if you fucking think I'm arrogant. I do know a bit about a lot of the things I talk about just because I have read things I do. Even when I'm posing questions on stream, like, I've read a few things, and I have like an inkling of like the direction, and unfortunately a few things is more than 99% of people. Okay, so when I was proposing those like rape and trauma questions, like, oh, I wonder if you have a predisposition of their protector, I knew, of course I know to some extent this is kind of true, right? I've taken a basic psychology class, we've watched a lot of psych videos, I've read quite a few fucking psych studies across different things, and I'm familiar with like the larger bodies of like general trends and shit, right? We did a lot of like trauma, dissociative amnesia research. We were looking about the satanic panel, right? Okay, I'm not like an expert, but I know a few things. I think Brittany sees herself as like an expertised person when it comes to relationships and trauma. That's like her one area of expertise. And in her mind, I'm like a nerdy guy that plays video games on the internet, and I talk politics. So when these two worlds collide, again, area of expertise and personal experience, she should be like the master of that domain. Like, oh, well, if I'm going to talk about anything related to trauma or whatever for Steven, I'm going to know, of course, way more than him. She didn't, and she doesn't. She doesn't know that much about where the research is on trauma or anything. She's probably never done any research there. I'm not even fully sure if she read that book, The Body Remembers. I don't even know if she's read that book. Because I got a lot of people emailing me excerpts from that book where it's like, hold on, this is actually a really good book that has a lot of research, but people misquote it in a lot of different ways. I'm like, oh. But so I think that was another issue too, to where she had an area of expertise. She felt like I don't have that area. And then when I contradict her there, and then when she talks to an expert and it's like, oh shit, she was completely wrong, completely. And then I'm not even sure if she can tell, like when she was talking to that psychologist, like maybe I should have pointed this out more. I think I did when I was listening. Like it's very clear that she's like angling for certain answers, and he's trying to be very careful to give her like not like the most brutal answer ever. Like even when she asks that last question of the psychologist, where she, or the therapist, psychologist, where she's like, hey, like, so would you say it's more of a mental thing or would you say it's more of a physical thing? Like that's not a real question. She's looking for validation there, right? Please validate me and tell me that it's not a mental thing, because it can't be the case that it's a mental thing, because if it is, then that means that I'm weak and I fucked up. That's like her thought process. And even when he answered that, he's like, oh, well, it's definitely both. But then he reiterates but like there are definitely like mental factors that like play into it, right? That last question is a really big thing. So I think that both of these things were blown fucking wide open in the rape discourse, but they also came up in that sex worker talk too. But I didn't consider her proclivity for being that upset in either of these areas, so I didn't think that it was that big of a deal too. But she brought that up a couple times with me and with Abba. To where, Destiny and Abba are closed off because of the sex worker thing. They didn't trust me or believe my experiences, which is funny. I didn't go back and check the VOD. Somebody go, I'm pretty sure I told her in that conversation, because I think we had a disagreement over like, can you healthily engage in like girlfriend experience stuff or DMing sex workers? I'm pretty sure I said in that conversation, after she said it, like, oh, maybe some people can engage with it in a healthy manner, and I just didn't know. But But that wasn't enough, I guess, because I needed to take what she said as gospel. But yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure this is what happened. None of that is a problem per se. These are all like features of different humans. That's fine. But when I started to, especially after the rape conversation, when I saw the reaction to that, I need to privately, the problem is privately, it's very hard to like hurt my feelings. It really is, privately. But publicly, there's a lot of like weird credibility issues, and there's a lot of weird audience confusion if I'm willing to be so charitable to somebody in a public manner that doesn't coincide with the likelihood of them like flipping horribly, right? Like privately, if you fuck me over a little bit and we don't talk, it's like whatever. But publicly, if it happens, it just takes on like a different life. So yeah, so I'm gonna be more honest with my assessment publicly of people in terms of like what I think is going to happen or where I think they're at, rather than like the endlessly charitable model. I'll still like talk to new people and let them on and shit, but I'm just going to be a little bit more honest. Yeah, I'll be a little bit more honest about where everything is, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty. Yeah, I think that's. This comment explains some of this as well. Which one? There were a couple comments on my subreddit that I don't know if you tried to link to something. Do you think you're too charitable? Like, are you okay with the level of fuck you're getting for that charitability? I'd be more okay if, as long as I'm like more public about what's happening, I think. Oh, this comment, yeah. Actually, this comment I agreed with a lot. I reread a lot of my sub at like 5 or 6 a.m. last night. It's unfortunately not surprising. When she had that argument with Mr. Girl before, she spiraled for a few. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on it, 'cause I don't. This isn't like a whole like shit on Britney stream. I don't want to. I'm just trying to. I just have to assess like what's going on. I'd say. What was this even in response to? Oh, it does say Black Britney. Okay. It's a fucking wild statement from Britney. I was a fan of her and a lot of this community liked her as well. This seriously is a total left-field nuke. She always came off as someone who was very good at listening, regardless of your opinion of her worldview system. I can't imagine someone who actually listened to Destiny's statements could make these statements, though, at the very least with this level of confidence and vitriol. It's unfortunately not surprising. When she had that... Oh, another example. I'm sorry, I just remember this, because I watched through her VOD from start to finish. So it's funny because she's very, very, very critical of my relationships and then of me giving any relationship advice. But somebody asks her at the end of her stream about her relationship, and then she mentions that like she met somebody and is marrying them and moving countries in like 3 months, and she's like, oh, I recommend like everybody try this. And I'm like, what the fuck? But it makes sense if I reframe it through like she considers herself expertise in the field of like relationships and relationship advice, and she considers like her ability to give advice in these matters to be like, this is my domain, I give advice and people ought to follow what they should. It makes more sense when I reframe it through that, basically. But no fucking shot she said that link. Well, okay, maybe my somebody can like, I think it's in the last like 10 minutes before her stream ends. You can go and find the clip if you want. So it doesn't seem like I'm making that up if you want. I'm pretty sure it's like 8 to 9 minutes towards the end, I think.
He slept with Anna without telling Melina everything.
No, but it's not this. It's like 8 to 9 minutes from the end. I don't want to go dig through a fucking video because I want to spend like hours like watching her shit today. God, I like how she is like just disconnected. She's so off on like so many random parts of my life too.
Express my feelings, and I don't need to do that with the internet. I would prefer to do that with just my hate. I understand that happens. I think Steven is a good person. I think Steven struggles with joy in his life, but I think we all do, so I think that's pretty common. The only things I know about Sneeko are the few private conversations we've had and what I've seen from his content, so obviously I'm only speaking from those things. I could be wrong. So if you guys think I'm wrong, great. It just doesn't matter, right? What matters is that we're trying. If your job is to be open and hear people, I'm happy to be heard.
Oh, you don't worry that assigning your friends a probability or trivializing complex relationship, at least with more important friends like Kyle and Dan, because this contribute to making relationships more disposable. No, I just have to be honest about like where things can break down. Like with Dan, like the only thing that can break down is like my life gets too crazy, and then Dan and I split because of that. Like that would be an issue. With Kyla, things could get too crazy if I have a disagreement with her over some opinion that she's expertise in, especially if she feels like I'm too uneducated to have that take or I'm not giving her a fair shot. So like, for instance, like we disagree over like dissociative amnesia a little bit, I think. I don't think she would, but like that, like if that relationship broke down, it would probably be along those lines, would be my guess. It's just being I'll just be more open about like where I think, yeah, instead of just like, oh, like I think this person's cool and I'll like vouch for this person or whatever, right?
I just don't think all people can hear people. And I think that's what's so difficult about communication, right? We live in different realities. We have different relationships with
Kelly, you're just a wild card, okay? Who knows?
our bodies and our words. We have different relationships with our joys, right? If you're happy and you're joyful, great. Show that with your life. If you're upset, admit that with your chest, right? So, is there anything else y'all want to talk about while I'm here? I'm trying to think. So I have a podcast coming up actually with Steven and Sneeko in it, so that's pretty cool. And one of my streamer friends.
Oh God, I recorded something with her like a week ago.
And I'm gonna make a video about middles that's really, really good. So props to both of them for making time to be on it, because I appreciate it. I like that a lot. I'm happy to talk to Destiny in private. I would love for Steven to get to know me more as a person. We haven't had a lot of opportunities to get to know each other as people. I'd love to be something more than a crystal girl.
This comment, I'd like to be something more than a crystal girl, is interesting because again, I've defended her so much publicly, but I think in her mind, the only type of validation she's looking for is like he needs to she needs to agree with or I'm sorry, she has to give advice and I have to agree with it, basically. That's like the frame of reference for like understanding her, basically.
But at the same time, that's not necessary. I understand we don't have a lot of time in our lives, and there's a lot of people we have to prioritize over each other, so that's okay as well. So yeah, we can talk about it in private when he has a moment. I think that would be most reasonable, because I'm not trying to win a debate. I'm trying to be vulnerable and express my feelings, and I don't need to do that with the internet. I would prefer to do that with just my friend listening, not the internet listening. Okay, so I watched Cuties this morning, so I could fucking talk about it. So I could be like, yeah, it's just normal movie bros. You don't like it the way it's filmed, don't watch European films. Like literally, if you don't like the way it's filmed, don't watch European films, right? Sneeko hated their children. I love them. They're little bros. I want to give them those noogies and tell them that they're working it out. Sneeko, I have this video coming up about this actually. That's really great. Well, it will come up. You'll see it. But yeah, it's actually about Destiny Sneeko.
Fuck, I'm not gonna be able to find that clip. I don't want to rewatch this whole fucking thing again for like the third fucking time. What was I? Oh, I think we're good. Oh, it's here.
Shit on my relationship. It is quite an anomaly. It's a great relationship, but it is. I did a courting version of dating, which is really, really specific to a bubble, and it worked out really well for me. But it's definitely unorthodox. I really recommend it though. Jessica says you don't want to argue with someone who's.
I feel like that's a wild statement to make, given like the totality of everything else she said in the video, but whatever. I don't know. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll read these two comments, and then we're moving on from this. Okay. It's unfortunately not surprising. When she had that argument with Mr. Girl before, she spiraled for a few days until she could find an argument that he had no moral compass. And so she didn't need to worry about his opinion of her and then felt better. In this case, she had a disagreement with Destiny and brought on a psychologist to talk about trauma properly, who basically agreed with Destiny, and he accidentally rubbed it in when reacting live by talking about how he felt she was unable to accurately summarize his points to others. This is a big challenge to her sense of self, her understanding of herself relative to him as someone who understands trauma better for having gone through it. If he can come out with better takes than her, at least from the perspective of the psychologist, without any first-hand knowledge, then this can challenge their relationship to one another, because he isn't simply unable to see outside of his bubble and understand the experiences of people with trauma, but is actually able to accurately guess underlying patterns of those experiences better than someone who experiences them. This is fundamentally a different challenge to the challenge of having a different worldview. It's the general problem of wanting to say, well, from your perspective, this is how the world works, but from my perspective, it works like this. When research allows you to demonstrate a degree of authority over others and show that it only appears to work a certain way, but actually there's a deeper understanding that people have to decide whether they can accept, they can't simply treat it as another point of view. I notice that Brittany does this thing a lot where she's like, well, for my bubble, I think for my bubble, sometimes it's a way to say anything without saying anything, right? That it's like, oh, well, if you say for my bubble, I basically have carte blanche to make whatever statement I want, because I can say, well, for my bubble, it makes sense. And then like, that's it. You're not actually like, you're not making like meaningful statements, right? It also means that he believes he's able to understand her perspective and model it, but she isn't able to do the same for him. So rather than her transcending bubbles, her perspective could be considered as a more limited version of the one he's reaching for. If the previous pattern is any useful point of reference, she will shit-talk him for a bit, do a bit of research, and eventually find some personal win relative to him that allows her to stabilize her sense of self relative to him. And if that win is compatible with a friendly relationship, move back into contact, but it isn't clear that can happen. This guy says, so you're saying Destiny popped a hole in her level 5 bubble. Potentially, specifically, there's a problem of whether they simply have a two-way miscommunication or if there's something he understands better than her. Now, he isn't claiming that at the moment. He's trying to stay in an explorative mode, even if he has a bias in a certain direction, where she is a much firmer position that she isn't able to get much purchase with. But the issue is that they're having a disagreement where there are material facts at hand, and even if he's trying not to win versus her attempts to buttress and reinforce her perspective on the nature of trauma are so far supporting points she challenged in the past. So even if he's not trying to win, it's still possible for her to lose. Loose, he said. Dumb fuck. It's also worth saying that I think she does actually have the emotional maturity to not necessarily repeat a previous pattern, and saying she'd rather have a conversation in private may indicate a disinterest in a competitive dynamic developing between them on this issue as public content creators. This could, for example, be the thing they don't talk about together on stream, because they know they disagree and it could be damaging their friendship, etc. A certain amount of this also depends on how much Destiny goes into betrayal revenge mode and how much he tries to move on or respond with a cool head later. Boom. Okay. Interesting. But, okay. Alright, I moved on from this. I'm figured out. Do you see how that not making meaningful statements can be offensive towards them? She might be... Well, yeah, I'm being more offensive now because now I figure that Bridge is kind of nuked. So, yeah, now my statements are going to be way more raw rather than... like if in a friendly manner, I might say that I think that when you say you're making a statement from a particular bubble, what is happening is
Doesn't want to spend time on this. Spends an hour anyway. Genius.
What's happening is you're avoiding like the ability to make more general statements, or it makes it harder to criticize you for saying something that might be incorrect because you're able to like niche it down so much that you are that you essentially escape responsibility for the statements. I think that would be like the thing I'd say. Yeah, Destiny. I don't think she even dislikes you though. She might not, but like I don't think that I should publicly vouch or associate with or be friends with people that criticize me. That's going to be the Mr. Girl part for this part of the article. But for people that are willing to throw me under the bus and trash me so fucking hard, especially in comparison with somebody like Sneeko, that's just like, that's too much. That's just insane. And I know that's insane, so I think that's okay.
Taking selfies with it. Oh, that's kind of cool. Wait, I got to get the selfie right. So he's going to turn that around, again, fingers on the trigger, and take a selfie. Now he's going to turn and point it at his buddy's head when thankfully the range safety officer sees it, steps in and grabs a hold of that, and thankfully
idiotic behavior at the gun range.
Make sure that the gun is safe, and then take these guys off the range, kick them out. They were never allowed back. We get to think about some lessons as firearm carriers in this one. All right, let's hear it in the comments today. What's the craziest and most egregious safety violation that you have seen at the shooting range? Let me know, and we will maybe even read some of the greatest ones on our Instagram. First,
not to trick you, but what is the main fundamental difference between her and Lav Loon? Lav's problem compared to Brittany, I think they're significantly different. Lav's issue is, Brittany in general, a switch flip for me, but in general, Brittany is okay to say like, these are the statements that I'm making, and like, if you don't agree, that's okay. Lav was way more like enforcing her point of view onto the rest of the world. Lav wanted to fight with everybody, and if you didn't agree with her, she would like massively disparage you for doing so. Like that last Brittany convo about me is like every single Lav convo. Like that was the issue. She's just way more aggressively leans into everything she says or does. What is this? Do I want to know what this is?
Sneeko just got arms. Oh my god, let me tell you, as a woman who checks out people's arms, because I love arms, I love them, Sneeko just started training arms because I just started to see definition. Steven has no arm muscle, which is why I'm pretty sure I could take him in a fight. And
why, like, she makes so many comments like this throughout the video. Brittany, you probably can't even bench the bar. She's like 5'2". like, like, Sneeko's not even that big. He's just lean. And I'm not even shitting on Sneeko. Like, I actually don't even know if Sneeko can bench a plate. He probably could, I would imagine. He hasn't posted videos. I don't know if he's ever posted videos of him doing a real workout ever. But it's just like, there are so many comments like that. God, what is wrong with you? I don't know. Okay, anyway, we moved on. Okay, stop. We moved on from this, okay? We've moved on. I'm actually so confused. Where is this coming from? I say as I read another comment. This is nuts. What is the actual origin of this? I think the rape convo was a really, really, really rough convo, I think. That was like a big one. Yeah. Vosh is on his transhumanist arc. Imagine if you compared her and Lav's breasts or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even gonna make the joke. It actually feels really gross.
Absolutely, for the right to keep and bear arms, that all people have the right to self-defense, and I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I think everybody should have the right to keep firearms and to use them. That being said, we are then responsible for safe firearms handling practices, and we must follow safe firearms handling procedures at all time. Always keep the firearm pointed in the direction of least consequence. Always keep our finger on the trigger. Instead, by pointing that. That is when.
Bro, don't aim the gun at your head, okay? We got it. What is this? I'm more interested in your state of mind. It goes so hard on every aspect of you, your body, your relationships, your morality, whatever else. I think that for a lot of people, this is something I'm never going to get used to this. And I've said this a million times, but like people just, I can't tell if it's rare or if I'm getting gaslit or what. Like, I very much work off of, I feel like this used to be normal on the internet, but maybe not. I very much work off of like an idea of like levels of interactions with people. And you traverse these levels in an orderly fashion. Like, hey, Like, you suck at League of Legends. Okay, well, you suck at StarCraft, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, well, you know, like, fuck you. You're a fucking brokey fuck, okay? Now you've gotten a little bit personal. You were just making fun of their games before. Now you're, like, personal. I'm broke? Bro, like, I've seen your disgusting fucking house. Like, fuck you, blah, blah. Okay, well, you know, like, I mean, you go a level deeper, like, well, you're a fat fucking piece of shit. Like, oh, okay, well, fuck you, you know? Like, you're, like, these are kind of, like, the levels you pretend, like, oh, well, your girlfriend is an ugly fucking piece of shit, and she's a slut. Like, oh, well, fuck you. Like, you know, your girlfriend is your left and right hand. Fuck you, you piece of shit, right? You, like, you go through these, like, levels of like, kind of back and forth. But it feels like for a lot of people, it's just, like, it's just, like, there's just, like, one level. Like if somebody says something to you, then anybody can say anything back, and like it's all the same shit. Like that's it. And nobody has like any recognition of this. So like when you flip a switch on somebody, like everything becomes basically open. You're like, oh, well that person said that I did this. Well, boom, 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 and it's like, oh, okay, well,
what you have to offer.
I guess that's So I think that a lot of people do that, to where when they flip a switch on somebody, like everything becomes like fair game.
I guess.
He's not even using the math program, guys.
What am I meant to do? There's nothing, guys.
Another try, I guess. LAN world. Game mode. Speedrun mode. Set own game mode to time to peep some toilets. The nearest bastion
400 blocks
underscore.
away.
Selected suggestion 1 out of 1. Locate the nearest fortress is at -544, -624, 801 blocks away. Options. Another try, I guess.
Wait, what did I even... Hold on, I'm sorry, I missed this. I go, damn.
There's nothing, guys.
Another try, I guess. LAN world. Game mode. Speedrun mode. Set own game mode to time to peep some toilets.
He's literally
The
blind.
nearest bastion
400 blocks
underscore.
away.
Selected suggestion 1 out of 1. Locate the nearest fortress
missing the
is
forest.
at
Your fortress is right next to him.
-624, 801 blocks away. Options. Another try, I guess.
That thing?
Wait.
I guess.
Bro, this fucking clip. I don't even know this got posted. Studies redacted but empty made brain toxicity. Oh. Hold on. This walk back is so fucking funny. It happens like 2 seconds.
Millions that you're making off Twitch, right? Is that something you're doing as a socialist, right? Does that carry over to your Twitch? So sure, I believe you for your podcast.
To who? To what?
To editors, to moderators.
Yes.
So you're paying moderators or a head of moderation?
No, not editors and not moderators.
I should watch past the clip to see what else was said, but that clip is very, very, very funny.
Million. That was the last squad.
Okay, we'll see it. Why did Hassan give Train a multi-hour debate but won't debate you? Probably more clout to be gained with Train, and he knows he would get fucking destroyed by me, so. Very little upside, very big downside.
Is that something you're doing as a socialist, right? Does that carry over to your Twitch? So sure, I believe you for your podcast.
To who? To what?
To editors, to moderators.
Yes.
So you're paying moderators or a head of moderation?
No, not editors and not moderators. I do have a compensation mechanism for my moderators.
Okay.
It is not one that I often publicize, specifically because I don't want moderators to come on board exclusively because they want to, use this as a job opportunity.
What the fuck? He's such a slimy fuck. Bro, you make 10 million a year on Twitch. Do a co-op. Why not do anything? If you're like imagine how embarrassed you must be if you're a socialist and all your leading socialist figures, you've got Ian Vosh, whatever the fuck his name is, who's too lazy to leave his house because he just wants to play video games. And then you've got Hassan making 10 million a year who doesn't want to like start any type of socialist project at all. Holy shit. What's up? Hello. Okay, she deafened.
Oh, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
What happened the last time? Why couldn't I hear you?
I don't know.
Okay. So I have a question. So, hello, chat. By the way, before I ask my question, what was the status in reference to the moderation and Rumble chat?
I don't think there is any yet.
Yeah. That's why I stopped streaming on there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm talking to the people. Obviously, if nothing gets done, then maybe I escape from my contract.
We've been asking them. We have been asking them this for like close to a year now. We're like, hey, can you guys do something? Can you like implement a moderation chat similar to YouTube or Twitch? And they're like, wow, we're up.
FPS seems to be pretty good.
I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like,
I got it. Don't worry. I'm talking to the big guy tonight. Okay, I'll bully the fuck out of him. Make it happen.
Thank you. So I would like to ask a question. So like, if you and I have a conversation publicly where you say something that rubbed me the wrong way or hurt my feelings, isn't it my responsibility to come to you privately or publicly to discuss that because you're not aware of